since so much of this analysis has been a function of like, what are the implications for the midterms? I am of the mind that the Build Back Better, the passage of the Build Back Better bill was really more about the sort of policy implications than the political implications.
Yeah,
and that, just like the COVID relief bill, like that doesn't seem to have meant anything to anybody. Mm-hmm. And the expiration of the unemployment benefits. I mean, I think like you have a slow degradation and disengagement by the base, which I think it could be very problematic by the midterms, but it also, negative partisanship becomes very important. I think the real thing is going to be really the vaccine mandates and the potential to roll out, I don't know, more at-home testing and, like this Pfizer anti-COVID pill or the Merck one or, some other nameless COVID bill or the vaccinations for kids. Like that could change everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's as always, it's hard to see in the COVID era. It's like we don't know what the world's going to look like soon, but I don't know. I think it could be the case where things are back to normal enough, and the economy, depending on I think energy prices in large part, but the economy is doing well enough that the election can be held entirely on weightless cultural issues. Like I actually think that's like a kind of a real possibility I have, which is it's kind of to some extent what happened in Virginia. I think like the things they were talking about had real causes, but it was kind of just like, if the crisis feels mostly done, we can just go back to screaming about nonsense.
But didn't it kind of connect though with COVID? I mean, basically what Youngkin was saying was, his final pitch, Fox News op-ed was, I won't close the schools. This will be over. Basically, he ran on, you're all sick of this and I'm going to end it.
Yeah. And I think that is, so the conservatives and Republicans have messages for their elite and messages for their base. I think for the Republican base, it's been over for a long time. They're not doing anything. Schools and schools are open in Virginia. So I think that was sort of an elite targeted message.
But then they're able to kind of say like, oh, well, if you elect a Democrat, it might happen again.
Yeah. But I just don't know. I mean, the reason I don't know if that was actually that compelling was because of the California recall, where that didn't work at all. I mean, maybe it was. I could be completely wrong, but the California recall seemed like an attempt to run on that issue above all else. Things will go back to normal. Schools open, won't close them.
California a bit different, I would say.
Well, yeah, totally. Yeah, you're totally right. But yeah.
But aren't we looking at a source of dissatisfaction, right, and of anger, which everybody on some level is feeling?
That Biden spoke to when he ran against Trump.
Yes, which is like, this pandemic has sucked. And then isolating one part that it sucked the most about, which was centered around the idea of schools and kids being at home, right? Because I mean, look, if you're in your 20s and your 30s, you are probably the least likely to have felt, broadly speaking, across the country, the problem with this pandemic, right? Because maybe if you don't have kids and you're 20s and you're in the 30s, you're still going out to a large extent.
Yeah.
You can't see your parents or this and that, but like you don't know as many people who have died who are your age. You don't have a maybe rational or maybe irrational fear about what's going to happen with your children. And so, to hit the cohort of people who, and particularly, non-college educated white working class folks, and although who are at least more open to the Republican message, and particularly in Virginia, it is a combination of, here's the angst, where are you going to channel that angst?
Yeah.
Well, here it is into a vague second, third order racism. and honestly, like, this is just sort of classic scapegoating. You're unhappy, you're dissatisfied, you're feeling a malaise. Well, here's a scapegoat for you. And that doesn't work as well in California, and that doesn't work as well in New Jersey, and that didn't work in New Hampshire. And in Connecticut, it didn't work in the same way, at least in the, the suburbs. But Virginia, maybe a little bit more open to that idea of scapegoating certain, cohort of people. And I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
If it seems to me we're in a position where COVID is not as big of a deal, that we have normalized to the extent that we can normalize, that kids are going to school and they're not masking up by, the end of next spring. And people are going out and, 98% of the country or 7% of the country is vaccinated or claim they are.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very different midterm, it seems to me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's a question too of does Biden go around the country barnstorming saying, I cured COVID. COVID went away because of me. I think that maybe that's a smart thing to do, but I also wonder, like, does that work? Does anyone give the government credit for it?
I think just the absence of it is to the benefit of Biden, right? I mean, the economy, there's every reason to believe that the economy is going to be doing well then.
I think employment will be good, hopefully, but I think the trends are all really good for employment. And it actually gets to what is bugging me here. This sounds like I'm changing the subject, but I just want to get this in. Like, in all of the blame game I'm seeing about Democrats' agenda being too progressive or too liberal, there's a strike wave happening in this country, and Democrats are doing nothing for labor.
Nothing.
They have for years. Their own campaign people know that when labor declines, Democratic vote share declines. You want to talk about the white working class? That's who you need to win back. There's a strike wave going on in the country. Democrats are not talking about it. They're not passing legislation addressing it. And it's not coming up in the postmortems. No one's bringing it up in the postmortems.
It also runs counter to the new kind of donor constituency that they're trying to covet.
Well, yes.
They're like, damn, do we really got to go back here? Because if they were just thinking about their electoral interests, yes, they would be leaning more into labor, but they've already gone down this path of upper middle class suburban voters, and I don't think they want to turn back, which is bad news.
And the strikes that we're seeing seem to me also to be sort of like, an analogy to what we saw in Virginia, in that people have gone through a lot of like a hell for the past 2 years. Mm-hmm. And they are looking for payback, and they are looking for, some form of reparation.
Yeah.
And if you are, if you're a John Deere worker and John Deere is making record billions of dollars of profit, I mean, just obscene amounts of money, you're going like, you know what? Giving us a raise that you denied us over the past 10, 12 years, that ain't cutting it.
Yeah.
I don't care what our union bosses say. It is time to pay back. But if you're a parent and you don't have the opportunity to strike, and somebody gives you a target, and that is a combination of the schools and like some toehold, which is they're teaching you that white people are bad. That we're going to see this across the sort of like, I think, the terrain. It's going to manifest itself in ways that we like and manifest its ways in that we don't like. And a political party has to take advantage of that.
Political party has to capitalize on that.
And they're not doing it, and the Democrats aren't doing it at all.
No, they're not. And that's the thing, because these moments are contestable, right? You determine, the political actor has a major role in determining who is the target of this discontent. you got to pick target. You got to pick a compelling target. You got to convince people that's the right target to go after. And Democrats are unable and unwilling to do that.
They seem completely oblivious.